Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with Lane Kawaoka about scaling and building a successful team in a wealth management organization. Lane Kawaoka, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jonathan. Aloha, everybody.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. I was looking back through my back catalog, and it looks like we had our first conversation in the summer where you shared a little bit about your journey, your background, and the path you took in your own personal development and your own career development. Today, we're going to be focusing on us with a slightly different angle, talking about your current organization that you've been building and how you have gone about building a successful team within a wealth management organization. And as we were talking in the pre-interview, just getting caught up and kind of framing out this episode, you know, it came up that I think will be of particular interest to listeners who kind of have that more boutique approach in their own organizations and their consulting clientele. And so hopefully this will be a really insightful conversation that will help other individuals think about how they build out their teams and reach out to clients with a real customer-centric orientation to drive value in the market. As we get started, I just wanted to share Lane's bio with everybody. Lane Kawaoka currently owns 3,500 plus units across the US. He lives in Hawaii and recently quit his day job as a professional engineer with an MS in civil engineering and construction management and a BS in industrial engineering. Lane partners with investors who want to build their portfolio, but are too busy to mess with tenants, toilets, and termites, as he refers to it, by curating opportunities in his Hua Deal Pipeline Club, where his investors have personal access to him and know that Lane is personally putting his money on the line too. The Pipeline Club has acquired over $255 million of real estate acquired by syndicating over $25 million of private equity since 2016. And Lane reverse engineers the wealth building strategies that the rich use to the middle class via the top 50 investing podcast, simplepassivecashflow.com. Lane's mission is to help hardworking professionals out of the rat race, one free strategy call at a time. Again, it's great to have you back, Lane. And I'm excited to talk a little bit more in detail about your organization, what you're doing to help your clients, and how you're building out your team to be to create an effective organization. Before we launch into that conversation, anything that you would like to share with listeners by way of your personal background, any context around what we're going to be discussing today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of learning at this too, right? And I think it's going to be a great conversation. Like I said, my first life was a professional engineer, working more in the construction industry. Actually built railroad. So I was a construction supervisor of blue collar staff, guys in their 50s and 60s without a college or maybe even a high school degree. A little bit different leadership style works, but that's where I kind of cut my teeth leading people. But it doesn't necessarily help me or transfer directly over to working with white collar staff as I am today. We currently own 4,500 rental units. We have an operations side, and then I have my coaching and consulting side where we work with other high net worth individuals to work with their money. And getting those folks straightened away with staff. It's not quite your spike driving laborer or your machine operator anymore. But yeah, totally. Let's dive into this.
Very cool. Yeah, and for anyone who may have not caught our previous episode, uh, Lane really talked in more depth in that previous episode over the summer about his background and kind of his journey and trajectory, and the reason why he took the path he did, ultimately finding himself where he is at today. So that could be a useful contextual episode if you're really interested in what we're talking about today. Okay, so now zooming back to the present, and we're talking about your current organization. Tell us a little bit more about how it's grown. You already referred to kind of the different divisions, the different pieces of what you're doing, but how have you built it out and developed it organizationally into its different areas of focus? And then we can start talking about how you started to identify the needs towards building out your team, and what went into that process.
Yeah, so originally, we used a lot of third-party property managers, which also have their staff at all our properties. The person at the leasing office, but they roll up to their HR department and their respective companies. We have sort of a dotted line, sort of management over them. And then we also have other contractors to kind of help me out. But as we've kind of moved along, we've kind of brought a lot of these positions in staff. We still scale with our property management firm, which is a separate entity, but a lot of my in-house marketing and customer service staff has kind of been taken over in-house. That's been kind of the general transition over the term. I mean, I think when you're any young company starting out, you're trying to build the systems, you don't know it, right? So I think that's where logically a contractor firm comes in. They have a lot of the systems and processes built in. They just need to plug into your organizations, your style, and how you do it. But I think at some point, you maybe go full cycle and you start to do it in-house. Now, maybe kind of to back up, I mean, I was talking to someone the other day, kind of getting started. You know, they don't really do any you got to get yourself off the ground first, right? You got to do it yourself, right? Like anybody else. Then I think you start to transition to contracting it out, paying people whatever it costs. It might be like a quarterly fee, annual fee, or pay per hour. But I think you got to figure out how that person does it, build a system and process it the way you want it, and then you have to bring in your own in-house. And I think that's the full cycle, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a really great description. And that's what I've seen personally play out as I've built out my organization as well, and reaching out to clients and such. And you start bootstrapping, right? And you're just kind of figuring things out as you go. You're doing as much by yourself as you can. You start to bring in other collaborators. Over time, you start to build out contracting infrastructure, and then eventually you get to the point where you need to hire employees to start doing that work. So as you've found yourself going full circle and getting to that stage, how did you start to identify which positions you could still contract out or have third parties do versus which ones you wanted to bring in house first and hire for? How did you go through that process?
Yeah, I mean, typically the general lens I would look through is if a position is more of kind of a grunt worker, right? It's very repeatable. That is normally the position you start to bring in-house first. The more technical positions, and this can kind of be very when you're building railroad, like the signal equipment, right? It's very technical. It's not a person, right? But it's equipment. It changes a lot. Those are the things that you kind of look to contract out, right? If you're still kind of going with this blended approach, but yeah, you got to start somewhere. So look for those things that are just kind of the grunt worker, the repeatable tasks over and over again first, and then slowly move to more of those technical tasks. Or you may choose a hybrid approach where you have a certain base of in-house workers, and then you outsource certain things as industry changes, right? Like marketing is sort of the same thing as technology. Things change a lot, right? Like LinkedIn may not work. It may be TikTok, right? Or whatever is coming up around the block. Your marketing channel will change, and that is where if you don't have systems and processes for people to run it, you're going to need to interchange contractors. And what's great about contractor, you don't feel guilty about firing them, right? You just get another one. That's their job. That's why they're in that business. And that's why they charge a little bit more than doing it in-house typically.
Yeah, and as you were describing that, a way that I think about it, and it depends on the business, depends on the organization, right? You described it as kind of the repeatable tasks, types of jobs, and that would be a reason why you bring someone in, to hire them in house. I think of it in terms of what are like the core competencies and capabilities that your organization, um, needs to be able to do. And those are the things that you have to do every day, right? And in some cases, it's grunt work, kind of manual labor type stuff, or tedious office type work. But in other cases, it could be anything really. But it's the whatever's at the core of what the organization does consistently all the time. That's enough to justify hiring somebody, bringing the position in house and actually hiring someone to do that. But when you need highly technical skills that often are shifting and changing, and it's only something that you need to do every so often, it would never make sense to hire, someone full time or even part time to do that. And so you contract out, you find other ways to get that expertise and to get those things done. And I think that is a healthy way to think about how we scale a business over time, so that we don't get bogged down in high fixed, costs and labor costs that can really drag us down, and rather just focus on what are the things that we need to be able to do and perform consistently day in, day out to add value to the market. We're going to build our team around that. And then over time, depending on how much we scale, we might have to bring in other areas of expertise as well, or we may just continue, like you said, with a hybrid approach, and ultimately, get the best of both worlds, where we can have this ever changing kind of technical expertise external to the company that we contract out, and we have our core group of people in the organization that can help it to run smoothly on a regular basis. Does that sound consistent and fair with what
Right.
you're describing? I'm excited to announce the publication of my new book from HCI Press, The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership: Ordinary, Everyday Actions That Produce Extraordinary Results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life.
I mean, it's you got to have some sort of base level way to kind of look how you strategize, how you use these positions. Another way of looking at it too, and I've kind of taken this from past companies in much different industry, is you keep the in-house staff, the managers, right? But you bring in the technical staff under them to work under the person, right? That's another way of doing it. You bring in the contractors under your in-house person who guides them, the owner's rep in that circumstance.
Yeah. So I think that's a good way to frame it, and to think through, anyone listening who you're struggling with the same questions about growth and scaling and staffing strategies. These are a few different kinds of ways of thinking about it, and different approaches. So now let's zoom in and focus specifically on your organization. So now you're starting, you're recognizing you're growing, you're scaling, you're recognizing the need to bring in people in house, and you've identified those positions that are going to be most important. Where are you at today in terms of your staffing and the size of your team? And what are some of the other considerations that have gone into how you've gone through the process of recruiting and selecting and getting, that team put together?
Yeah. So right now I'm kind of building up that first ring and rung around me, right? Like the idea is not one person can manage more than 4 to 5 people at a time, direct chain of command. um, you see it out there. You see very like I guess wide org structures, but in traditional management, I mean, you're not really giving your subordinates the time, right? And that's what you really should be doing: mentoring, coaching, and then providing them with the support. And if that's the theory, I mean, I'm trying to build that first ring around me first, right? And then maybe these persons can get coached up, trained up about the culture, and then ultimately have people under them. But unless you bring people on the bus, see who wants to stay on the bus, you don't start to build this first ring. You don't start to exponentially grow from there. So that's kind of an important growing pain that I'm kind of moving through now. I kind of run a small organization, so I'm kind of very close to kind of the end game and sort of where I want my mature org structure to be. But whereas someone who is running a much larger, maybe 30, 40, 50 staff members, you're going to have to expedite this a little bit, and it's just going to take a while. But that's kind of the first way of kind of going about it. You got to start to build that first group. And like people have come and gone, maybe because we paid them too little bit, or they just weren't a good fit, or maybe we just didn't have our own systems, onboarding system and processes put together that they didn't want to work for us. You never know, right? It's either us or the people. It is what it is. But I think it's a matter of just figuring out who's a good match, who's really like going to put in more work than you pay them ultimately. And that's what you want as a business owner.
Yeah, you're looking for potential in the people that you hire. And ultimately it's not about exploitation of people, but when you're talking about exempt positions, they're non overtime positions. Yeah, you want people with passion, with energy, who are willing to do what it takes to get the job done. Whether they can get it done in 40 hours or it takes 50 or 60 hours. Ultimately, we want our workers to work in a sustainable fashion so they don't get burned out and they don't leave. But other than that, get people doing the types of things they're good at, that they enjoy doing, and you're going to be able to leverage that passion. And that's really what startups and that young growth companies who are starting to scale, what they really need in that core group. Like you said, that first rung around you need really great people to be in those positions, because they're going, as you continue to scale, they're going to be the individuals that you're going to start to build the outer rings around. And if you don't have the right people there, you're going to have headaches and you're going to falter along that growth trajectory. So I think that's also a really important point. Get people who are willing, especially in a young company, in a small growing company, people who are willing to put in the time and the effort, and recognize that there are going to be sacrifices along the way towards that growth. But ultimately, there's going to be payoffs for those sacrifices, right? And that's why we get into our careers and we do what we do. Ultimately, there's always those trade-offs and there's always those sacrifices. And ultimately, we have to decide, if I'm a business owner and trying to scale my business, I just have to decide, how am I going to sweeten the pot? What am I willing to do for my people? And hopefully you find that nice balance where you get the right people on the bus, sitting in the right seats, with a good fit, with a shared purpose, with the right skills and capacities to be able to help the organization move forward. And it, you start to just mesh, and that's what we want. It's not always easy to happen. It's not always easy to achieve. You mentioned even, that you've had people come and go because sometimes it's just not the right fit. And I think that's important for us to recognize from the employer end, if someone's not a good fit, because that can drag down an organization, especially one that's trying to grow. But it's also important as an employee, thinking about my own career, I need to be thinking about fit. And ultimately, we want to find alignment both directions so that everyone feels like they're winning with this employment arrangement, right?
Right. Right. I mean, I kind of take it upon myself. I mean, as the leader, I take accountability that I'd say most times I'm going to take the blame for it something not working out. And I know minority of the time that it's the person, right? And that's whether that's right or wrong. That's the mindset that I'm going to go in, and it's important that it's my job to kind of lead and manage them the right way. And part of that is having a mission behind it, right? They're not just coming to work every day and kind of doing a bunch of mundane tasks that are, or maybe playing project manager with this interesting project here or there. But these tasks, these projects have to add up to some sort of mission. And for us, it's, there's a lot of bad financial advice put out there by financial planners, by what our parents taught us: buy a house to live in, invest in retirement accounts. I mean, that's what kind of basis of my path. Like, I started investing in real estate right out of college, and I was able to quit my day job in 10 years doing it, right? So for us is to be able to teach that to people and get them away from the Wall Street mentality, um, and help good hardworking people, right? Like, that's what I tell my folks. Like, we're just helping good hardworking people get on the real path to financial freedom, and get them freedom from this normal 40-50 year plan where they just get slaughtered. They have to work their butts off and pay a lot of taxes along the road. Now, that's something that somebody can get behind, right? They sympathize with hardworking people because they're hardworking. And we're also helping them the same way we're helping our clients, but like, they see that unjust, they want to make the situation right. And that's kind of our core mission. And that's something that not everybody gets behind. Some people really like it. Like, that's why we try and look for folks that kind of align with our style of, like, the Robin Hood mentality, steal from the rich, rob for the poor, in a way.
I like it.
Create this, create the righteous justice that is, that hardworking people can get ahead. But the truth is, middle class America are the ones screwed over. They're the ones paying all the taxes that the wealthy don't, and they're paying all the taxes for the poor people, right? Who get benefit of government entitlement programs.
Yeah. So, I mean, that passion, that purpose, that really is so important. And it's different for every organization, right? For your organization, it's about wealth, growth and wealth development, and finding, ways to do that. And, name any organization, and hopefully they have their vision, their passion, their purpose, and hopefully that resonates and connects with the people who work there. And if it doesn't, you have misalignment, and ultimately causes problems for everybody. So absolutely, when I'm looking for someone to join my team, I want someone who believes in what the organization is about, what we're trying to accomplish. And that's almost as important as the background they have and the skills that they have, because you can teach skills. You can't always get people to get on board in terms of values and purpose and passion, right? And the energy and just the work ethic and everything that goes into launching a successful business. So ultimately, I think that's an excellent focus. And you've talked about mentoring and coaching, and taking personal accountability and responsibility for the success and the failures of the organization. I think those are all really healthy mentalities to have as we try to lead our organizations and grow and scale them over time. Well, Lane, it has been a real pleasure talking with you. The time has flown by. But before we close today, I do want to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can get connected with you, find out more about your company, and anything else that you would like to say as we wrap things up, and just give the final word on the topic for the day.
Yeah, so we offer education for folks wanting to build their real estate portfolio, whether that's a rental property out of state remotely where the numbers make sense, or jumping into an opportunity alongside with us, partnering with us. They can go to my podcast, Simple Passive Cash Flow, Passive Investing, or go to simplepassivecashflow.com. Reach out to me. My email is lane@simplepassivecashflow.com.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lane. It has been a real pleasure. I enjoy talking with you every time we get a chance. You're welcome back on the podcast anytime. I hope listeners will reach out, get connected with Lane, find out more about his company, what they can do to help you develop yourselves, your wealth, your resources to achieve your life goals. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.
We are excited about the launch of HCI's new magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine designed to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We will be publishing issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Check out the first issue and let us know what you think. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.